The Senate has cleared a major hurdle in advancing bipartisan gun legislation. The bill still faces a floor vote in the Senate before it can head to the House, but has enough Republican support at the moment to pass. 14 Republicans, including Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, joined all Democrats in advancing the bill. The legislation would enhance background checks for gun buyers under 21. It would also help states implement so-called red flag laws and close what's known as the boyfriend loophole to prevent domestic violence abusers from buying a gun. The bill also includes funding for mental health and school safety resources. CBS News political correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns joins us now for more. Hi there, Caitlin. So, this has been an intractable issue, as you know, for so very long. Break down the next steps for us. What still needs to happen until this bill is actually on President Biden's desk?
Hi, Elaine. Well, as you know, as we've both covered so many instances of mass shootings and the failure of Congress to act here on Capitol Hill, we are finally seeing movement. So you mentioned this procedural hurdle that was cleared yesterday with 14 Republicans, which was actually more than expected. Remember, there were 10 Republicans who had originally signed on to that framework. Now you have 4 other Republicans, including Mitch McConnell, joining in on this. So they have one more legislative hurdle to come, and then a final vote, and then it will have to go over to the House to also be passed. But interestingly enough, we heard today via Twitter from the Republican congressman who represents Uvalde and who has been very resistant to any sort of gun legislation. He announced that he would be supporting this framework, this bill, once it gets over to the House. So that shows that there's not only bipartisan support here in the Senate, but also some potentially growing support over in the House. Now, lawmakers, of course, wanted to get this done as soon as possible before they head out on recess next week. But given the procedures that are still need to be cleared, that will likely be cleared, it may be till this weekend for a final vote and then heading towards the president's desk, potentially next week.
It's been really interesting to watch as these negotiations have unfolded and that development that you just mentioned. So as we talked about earlier, 14 Republicans supported this first vote. Only 10 are needed to break the filibuster. Caitlin, does that mean that this bill is in the clear, or is there still a chance that enough Republicans might change their mind in the coming days?
It is in the clear, and we're also looking to see if potentially more Republicans sign on. Now, Republicans who voted against proceeding with the bill yesterday some of them said that they didn't have enough time to read it because the final legislation was dropped about an hour before the vote. So we'll see whether those who say they didn't have a chance to read it will actually vote for it, because a lot of the things in here are things that Republicans have supported either at the state level or in their own legislation, particularly incentivizing states to implement their own red flag laws as part of this measure. But we also saw some kind of tricky political dynamics happen for Republicans. Yes, it is very significant that Mitch McConnell came out not only endorsing the framework, but voting to proceed with the actual legislation. That could give some political cover for some Republicans who are anxious about their own reelection bids, especially since we're in the middle of primary season. But remember, over the weekend, John Cornyn, who was a lead Republican negotiator on this bill, the senior senator from Texas, of course, where the Uvalde shooting was, he was booed at a state party convention, and they actually passed a measure in the state party convention, firing back at Republicans, rebuking Republicans like Cornyn who are supportive of this framework. So while there is some political cover for McConnell, we are still in primary season, and that reaction from Texas Republicans at that convention shows that there is still a big resistance within the party to move forward on anything at the national level, especially that involves measures on guns. But when this makes it to the president's desk, this will be, as negotiators on both sides are saying, the most significant gun legislation that they've seen in 30 years.
All right, Caitlin Huey-Burns with the latest developments on Capitol Hill. Caitlin, thank you.
Thank you.